Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Caden Kubler and welcome to Caden's Corner. Then we'll hop over to the Eastern Conference. We'll also stay in this 1 versus 8 matchup. I was really hoping that Jimmy Butler would play in this series. I think that would have made for another great series. We saw this improbable run that the Miami Heat made last year, beating the Bucks as the 8th seed, then beating New York, then beating Boston and making it all the way to the finals. But without playoff Jimmy, Miami has no chance and this Boston buzzsaw team will move in 4 games. Then we'll move to probably the most anticipated series here for the first round in the Eastern Conference. We have New York, who grabbed that number 2 seed against Philadelphia, who now has a healthy Joel Embiid as that number 7 seed. I think this is an absolutely terrible draw here for New York. They were really in that 3 and 4 bid the entire year. Then Milwaukee had that slump late, and New York ultimately grabbed that number 2 seed. And for working so hard in the regular season, their reward is playing the former MVP Joel Embiid in this Philadelphia squad. But don't get me wrong here, New York is more than capable of winning this series, and it's off the back of their MVP candidate, Jalen Brunson. I truly don't think that this guy has gotten enough credit for what he has done for New York this season and how good he has played. The Knicks haven't had their second best player in Julius Randle virtually all season long, and Jalen Brunson has been balling. You look at his final 7 games here that I have pulled up, he put up 38 points per game in this final 7-game stretch. Jalen Brunson has been on fire. You also look at the trade deadline move that New York made that's made them so dynamic on the defensive end. They grabbed OG Anunoby from the Knicks, shipped off RJ Barrett and Emmanuel quickly. People were concerned with the move at first, but OG has made this team spectacular. The Knicks aren't going to have Julius Randle the rest of the regular season. I think that really is going to stunt them from making an Eastern Conference Finals run. Joel Embiid, he's back and healthy. New York not having Julius Randle and that extra size is really going to affect them. Embiid has never reached the conference finals, and I believe this is the best shot that he's had in his entire career. This Philadelphia team, they have weapons. They have Tyrese Maxey, a guy that can now play off Joel Embiid with him back in the rotation. I really love the spark that Kelly Oubre's brought to the team this season. Tobias Harris has always been a guy that'll give around 15 points a game. And Philly is always a dynamic atmosphere in the postseason. Embiid is ultimately a matchup nightmare for any team for how good he is at 7 feet tall, but he's going to dominate New York in this series. This season against New York, he's averaging 37 points per game, and I don't expect it to slow down here. With how great of a season that Jalen Brunson is having, it's a darn shame that Julius Randle got hurt, but at the end of the day, I'm taking Embiid and Philadelphia to win this series in 7 games. In probably my favorite first round series of the entire playoffs, we have the 3-6 matchup as the Milwaukee Bucks, who've been on a major slump, against Indiana, one of the best offenses in the NBA. I think this series has 6 to 7 games written all over it, and I know I just talked about how New York ultimately grabbed that 2 seed and Milwaukee fell out of it, avoiding Philadelphia, but I think that this is not some favorable draw here for Milwaukee. They're too familiar with this Indiana team that they've seen 5 times this year and only have 1 win against. Milwaukee's been bad on the defensive end. They can't stop a nosebleed to save their life. The lowest amount of points that they held the Indiana Pacers to in the 5 matchups that they played was 122 points, and Indiana dropped 140 on them twice. You look at this Milwaukee team at the beginning of the season under Adrian Griffin, they were playing their best basketball. Now with Doc Rivers, they are playing their worst basketball and have been trending downwards heading into the postseason. Milwaukee ended their season going 2-6, and I simply have no faith in this team. With Tyrese Halliburton fully healthy, Indiana has no problem putting up 140 points a game and allowing Damian Giannis to score 30. This is going to be an absolute offensive barrage from both sides, and this series is going to be a lot of fun. I told you a few months ago that with how wide open the East was, that Indiana was one of the most underrated teams in the Eastern Conference, and to not be surprised if they made a conference finals run. I'm sticking with that. Give me Indiana to win this series in 6 games and send home Giannis and Dame in the first round. Now we'll head to this 4-5 series between the Cavaliers and the Magic. I think this is one of the least exciting playoff matchups here. I'll start this out by giving Paolo Banchero some flowers here. As a sophomore, he led this Magic team to the number 5 seed in the Eastern Conference. That is really dang impressive, and this kid has a very bright future ahead of him. But just because this series doesn't have 15 superstars in it doesn't mean that it's not a very high pressure series for Cleveland here. Their head coach JB Bickerstaff almost got fired at the beginning of the season for underperforming offensively with this backcourt of Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. Last year, they came up short in the postseason as the number 4 seed. They lost in 5 games to New York, and Donovan Mitchell didn't have a good series. For a guy that put up around 30 points per game in the regular season last year, he came up short, only putting up 23 a game in the New York series last year. Cleveland has a lot of pressure surrounding them heading into this series, and ultimately I believe they'll pull it out due to this backcourt of Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. I think the Spider has a lot to prove, and with how good this Magic defense has been, they're going to have their hands full with these two guys. I look for this to be a defensive battle on both ends, but I have Cleveland winning this series in 6 games. Now we'll head to the second round of the Eastern Conference here, where we have the Celtics against the Cavaliers in the 1-4 matchup. I also don't think that Boston will remotely struggle at all in this series. They've been such a buzzsaw all season long with how good they are 1 through 5. Boston went 2-1 against them on the regular season, and the Cavaliers' only win was a 30-point second half comeback. I don't think the Cavaliers have enough offensively to overcome this punch that the Celtics bring. The Cavaliers generate almost all of their offense through Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell in the backcourt. The Celtics have the best backcourt defense in the entire league, led by Drew Holiday and Derek White. Not to mention, Boston can also match the pace that Cleveland's going to want to play at. Cleveland can play slow with their big guys, Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, but this should ultimately be another easy sweep for Boston here, representing the first team in the Eastern Conference Finals. Then in the second matchup, you have both upset picks, the Pacers as the number 6 seed and Philadelphia as the number 7 seed. I think this will also be another great series. Even though both of these teams have such a low seed, I believe they are truly up there as 2 of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. Indiana went 2-0 against the Sixers when Embiid was fully healthy in the lineup, and then their other loss against them, Embiid wasn't playing. Joel Embiid has his best shot to ever reach the conference finals, and I don't think Indiana's going to get in his way of making it. Indiana has one of the best offenses in the NBA that I think will keep them in the series, but their defense is absolutely abysmal, and with how good Joel Embiid is, he's going to feast this series. I got Philly in 6 here for Joel Embiid's first ever trip to the conference finals. We'll stay in the East here for the Eastern Conference Finals. We have the Celtics, we have Philadelphia for a rematch of last year when Boston bounced them in 7 games. Boston has absolutely owned Philadelphia over the past few years. Even Joel Embiid has said this isn't a rivalry. They always kick our butt. You even have Paul Reed on the 76ers, who's happy they're avoiding Boston in the first round because they know New York is an easier opponent. Philadelphia has always struggled against Boston, and I don't see it stopping here. Boston was able to beat Philadelphia in 7 games last year, and they've done nothing but get way better. Give me Boston in 5 games over Philadelphia to have an absolute cakewalk into the finals. In the finals, we have the Boston Celtics against the Phoenix Suns. The Celtics have virtually cakewalked their way through the Eastern Conference. Phoenix will have played 3 grueling series against the Timberwolves, against the Nuggets, then against the Clippers, 3 teams that all had championship aspirations. But this is the year that Boston finally gets it done. They finally get over the hump and get that monkey off their back. When you look at this matchup, Tatum has always played Kevin Durant really well, especially in the past few seasons, and I don't see that stopping here. Phoenix also hasn't seen Porzingis yet, and they're 0-2 against the Celtics this season. We all know how great Porzingis has been for this Celtics team, the switchability that he brings. Boston is just so balanced. They've been unbelievable all season long. Just to read you guys off a few numbers here, they're the best in net rating. They're the second best in defensive rating. They're the third best in defensive efficiency. They have the best offensive rating in the league and the first best offensive efficiency as well. They've had an absolutely fantastic regular season. We saw them win 64 ball games, claiming that number 1 overall seed in the playoffs. You look at this starting lineup 1 through 5, every single guy can easily drop 30 points, and the scarier part about it is they have this core locked up for the next few years. They are such a nightmare against opposing coaches, and I don't even know where you start to defend this team. First of all, you have the superstars, Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown, the $300 million man. Jayson Tatum, the soon-to-be $300 million man. Both of these guys are absolutely phenomenal ISO players, not to mention they've become willing passers over their careers. Then you have Kristaps Porzingis, who's been absolutely phenomenal for this team and took no time at all adapting to this Boston environment. He's been a monster off of switches when he comes up to do the high screen and roll. You want to switch that smaller defender on him in that high screen and roll? Good luck, he will make you pay with his deadly mid-range jumper. And then looking at their guards, they have one of the best defensive backcourts in the NBA who can also get it done on the offensive end. We'll start with Derek White. He can give you a 30-piece on any given night, not to mention he's leading the NBA in blocks at the guard position. And then Jrue Holiday, he'll probably be on the all-defensive NBA team again, and not to mention he's shooting the best corner three-point percentage in the NBA. Boston is an absolute buzzsaw, and it's no wonder why they had 64 wins and the #1 overall record in the NBA. This is the year that they get it done. Jayson Tatum will have his revenge from the finals 2 years ago, winning finals MVP, and a dynasty is born in Boston. I'm Caden Kubler, and that's my take.